Three well-trained USA boxers fought exciting final matches and won gold medals before a capacity crowd of 16,000 wild-eyed fans.
What had begun as a personal stand against the draft had evolved into something very larger. Ali had become a voice for anti-war movement and black pride.
Well, I talk to God every day. If God's with me, can't nobody be against me, Sonny. I shook up the world.
The man who once trained for championship fights now traveled the lecture circuit in a very beat-up and old car.
Only last week, I murdered a rock, injured a stone, hospitalized a brick. I'm so mean, I make medicine sick.
He had lost 4 major years of his prime career.
My name is Muhammad Ali, and so it was.
I am the greatest.
He's a disgrace to his country, his race, and what he laughingly describes as his profession. He has been found guilty. He is out on bail. He will inevitably go to prison, as well he should. He's a simplistic fool and a pawn.
Oh, I certainly do. My views on the draft are clear. I'm against it.
The boy who couldn't keep his bicycle had found his destiny.
Float like a butterfly and sting like a bee.
This is the legend of Muhammad Ali, the prettiest fighter there ever will be.
Cassius Marcellus Clay Jr. जनवरी 17, 1942 लुइसविल नाम के एक बहुत ही छोटे साउथ अमेरिकन शहर में पैदा हुए थे। उनके पापा कैसियस मार्सेलस क्ले सीनियर एक बिलबोर्ड्स के लिए पेंटिंग करते थे और उनकी माँ was just a housewife and a domestic helper. Now where Clay Jr. was born, it was a region of maximum racism, where black and white people had a very variety of segregations due to their racial slur and their racial caste. From birth itself, Cassius was a very boastful child. He used to speak on people's face. Once, Cassius had his prized bicycle stolen at the age of 12. Furious and determined to beat up the thief, Cassius went and reported this crime to police officer Joe Martin. But young Cassius didn't have any idea that this one little single police complaint was going to change his life forever. Because Joe Martin, who was a police officer, used to train young boxers at Columbia Gym. Because Joe Martin saw something in the angry but determined boy. 6 weeks later, Cassius won his first amateur bout. The boy who couldn't keep his bicycle had found his destiny. What seemed like childish boasting was turning out to be that child's prophecy. By the age of 18, Clay had a record of 100 wins with only 5 losses. But its greatest amateur test awaited at the 1960 Olympics in Rome.
3 well-trained USA boxers fought exciting final matches and won gold medals before a capacity crowd of 16,200 wild-eyed fans.
Clay traveled to Rome and won the gold medal by beating a very experienced Polish fighter. As the American anthem played, the 18-year-old stood proudly. America celebrated its Olympic heroes, but racism didn't take a holiday. Olympic gold should have been Cassius' roadway to get respect back at home. But America in 1960 wasn't ready to embrace a black champion. With Olympic gold around his neck, Clay turned professional under an unusual arrangement. A syndicate of wealthy white Louisville businessmen who called themselves the Louisville Sponsoring Group. 11 millionaires invested in the promising young fighter, giving him a salary while taking 50% of his earnings. For a black athlete in the year 1960, it was a very rare opportunity to get a financial security. The syndicate paired Clay with a very respected trainer, Angelo Dundee, who had the wisdom to refine, not rebuild, Clay's unconventional style. From 1960 to 1963, Clay steamrolled through the heavyweight division, compiling a perfect 19-0 record. But it wasn't just his fights that got attention. It was his mouth. Clay's poetry, Clay's boasting, Clay's predictions and provocations made him box office gold, even as many boxing purists dismissed him as a clown. But he was the people's favorite.
Only last week, I murdered a rock, injured a stone, hospitalize a brick. I'm so mean I make medicine sick.
By 1964, Clay had talked his way into getting a title shot against the most feared man in boxing, the heavyweight champion Sonny Liston, an ex-convict with ties to organized crime and a very devastating punching power. At the weigh-in, Clay made a very manic display. His heartbeat was around 120 beats per minute. Some commissioners wanted to cancel the fight, believing Clay was too scared to compete. But well, when the bell rang, it was Liston who looked confused. Clay's speed bewildered the champion. His footwork was revolutionary for a heavyweight. By round 6, the most dangerous champion, the most feared champion in the world was exhausted, his eyes swollen. Between rounds, Clay shouted to the reporters at the ringside. The 22-year-old had shocked the sporting world. But the very next day, he would shock America very much more profoundly. Unknown to most Americans, Clay had been attending the Nations of Islam meetings for years. The charismatic Malcolm X had been his spiritual mentor. On February 26, 1964, Clay confirmed the rumors, just a few days after when he won the championship. 1 week later, the Nation of Islam's leader, Elijah Muhammad, gave Cassius a new name, a name that would be written in the books of history forever. Well, as expected, the backlash was very immediate. Sponsors flew away. Former supporters abandoned him, but Ali stood firm on his decision. But this was only just a beginning for Ali's fight outside the ring. A fight that would cost him his title and the prime of his career. Between 1964 and 1967, Ali successfully defended his heavyweight title 9 times, often predicting the exact round his opponent would fail. His rematch with Liston ended in just 1 minute of the first round with a punch so fast that many ringside didn't see it land. The infamous Phantom Punch sparked a controversy that continues to this day today. Despite the controversial ending, Ali had affirmed his position as the champion, but his biggest fight was just brewing outside the ring. As Ali's boxing star rose, America's connection with Vietnam was getting deep. By 1966, with the war escalating, Ali received his draft notice. His response shocked the whole America. In an era where rejecting a draft meant prison, Ali stood his ground, citing his religious beliefs as a Muslim minister and his moral opposition to the war. On April 28, 1967, Ali refused induction into the armed forces. Within hours, he was stripped of his heavyweight championship. He was stripped off from his professional boxing license. At 25, in his physical prime, the greatest boxer in the world was banned from his profession and faced totally of 5 years in prison.
He's a disgrace to his country, his race, and what he laughingly describes as his profession. He has been found guilty. He is out on bail.
Facing prison and unable to box. What had begun as a personal stand against the draft had evolved into something very larger. Ali had become a voice for anti-war movement and black pride. His income dropped from millions to just a few $100s for speaking engagements. The man who once trained for championship fights now traveled the lecture circuit in a very beat-up and old car. As the war grew more unpopular and the civil rights movement gained momentum, public opinion began shifting. What seemed radical in 1967 was becoming mainstream by 1970. After a 4-year legal battle, the US Supreme Court unanimously overturned Ali's conviction and made him possible to box. But he had lost 4 major years of his prime career. The exile was over, but Muhammad Ali's greatest test and greatest triumphs still lay ahead.